through it and talk to people, but at some point dreams have to become action. Like what a shame to get to the end of your life and say, well, I wish I would have given that a shot. And doesn't mean that you throw away your whole life savings. When Brandi and I started the bakery, we were 2 nights a week. It was just little. It wasn't going to be something that ruined us financially, but we just kind of went for it.
They just went for it.
They just kind of went for it.
That was, hey everyone, this is Justin and Caden at Seeking Context. And that intro clip you saw there was my interview from earlier this week with Kyle Bloom. Kyle is the owner of the Sunshine Bakery with his wife Brandi here in Oakley, and he's also the pastor at Gateway Fellowship. And so we have a really interesting, wide-ranging conversation about the history of the Sunshine Bakery, the history of Gateway Fellowship, formerly the Community Church in Oakley, Kansas. And I think you'll find it enlightening, inspiring, and interesting. Even Caden said so.
That's right. I'm the toughest audience there is, and I found it interesting.
I'm glad you let us air it this week.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't think anyone would be ready for it, but I think it was pretty good. It was concise enough.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you made it through the editors. But why don't you tell everybody about Buy Me a Coffee?
Sure. And if you want, you can throw up the splash. But
it's coming up.
But what Buy Me a Coffee is basically a very, very easy way for people to donate to Seeking Context if they feel like they would like to support us. It's very easy. You would go to the link there at buymeacoffee.com/Seeking Context, and you can pick between 1 to 5 to any number, and it says buy us a coffee. Obviously, you're not buying us a latte, but it's just if you're out doing something, if you move someone to a new house, if you did a favor for someone, they're going to buy you a coffee the next day or when they see you next. So it's just it's a very easy, it's not pushy, and you don't have to sign up forever. There's no fees. So we just thought this would be a really good way for people wanting to support us to allow them to do that through Buy Me a Coffee. So check it out if you feel inclined.
All right. Well, thanks for getting that set up, Caden. And this is our first time ever trying to actually generate revenue for the show. So we're going to see how it goes. And I think that you're going to like this episode coming up with Kyle Bloom. And with that, I'll go ahead and start the full interview here with Kyle. And Caden and I will be back after the interview.
Sounds good.
All right. Hello, Oakley, Kansas. Hello, America. This is Justin at Seeking Context with Kyle Bloom. Kyle is the proprietor of the Sunshine Bakery Daylight Donut Shop in Oakley, Kansas, with his wife Brandi, and he's also the lead pastor at the Gateway Fellowship, which is where we're recording this morning. And we're going to find out about being an entrepreneur in business and faith in this country. Okay. So thanks for talking.
Well, I've never been called a proprietor before until this moment, so I'm feeling already pretty good.
All right. Well, so to start with, for those that don't live in Oakley, because I think everybody here has been to the Daylight Donut Shop, but
sure,
what kind of food do you make? What kind of donuts, breakfast, beverages can you get at the Sunshine Bakery?
So Sunshine Bakery is primarily a donut and coffee shop, and so we have we are a license of Daylight Donuts based in Tulsa, and so all sorts of variety of donuts, as well as any type of coffee, espresso drink, mochas, lattes, etc. And then we also have a small selection of hot breakfast, burritos, sandwiches, and so on. And so we're open Tuesday through Saturday each week.
Right. Yeah. And you guys make donuts here, but you also truck them around the area, right?
That's right.
So where else can Daylight Donuts?
Well, you can get Daylight Donuts all over the place, like all over the country, because it's a license. You can get our Daylight Donuts in currently, obviously, our store, J&J and Mittens in Oakley, the Oasis Travel Shop in Colby, the Brewster Grocery Store, Frontier Ag in Goodland, and Cowboy Corner in Goodland. You can get them all to those places Tuesday through Saturday.
Cool. And so are you making all those donuts here and then somebody drives at 4 a.m?
That's literally exactly what happens. Yeah, we make them overnight. We box them up. We have spreadsheets to say this person needs this amount. And box them up, and then we've got one of our staff members gets in a car at 4 a.m. and delivers them to all these places. So yeah, it works really well.
And so how early do you have to get up to make the donuts? Who's starting this process each
Well,
day?
we have a staff at night, and I kind of run the night side. Brandi runs the daytime side, and we will kind of start getting in there actually because our driver needs to leave early, and because our shop is unique that it has to flip from making to serving. It's so small to where we use the whole place to make, and then everything has to get cleaned and put back together for guests to come at 5 a.m. So we actually, the first person will get there 8:30 p.m. and start, turning on fryers and making frostings and that type of things. And we'll cook depending on how we need to make that night.
So you have trays of donuts out on those tables in the eating area?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Interesting.
Yeah, all of our wholesale boxing is in that dining area. And so it's all lined out with boxes and trays. And so, yeah, then, before 5 a.m. comes, all that has to get switched back over. And so it's quite a process.
Midnight to 5 a.m., it's a warehouse.
It's a warehouse. That's well said.
Okay.
It's well said.
That's really interesting. Yeah. That's cool. What's your favorite item, or what's most popular in terms of donuts and breakfasts?
Well, so from just me personally, I'm just a black coffee guy. That's what I'm drinking now. That's what I drink all day long. The caramel macchiato is our most popular coffee drink by a pretty long margin. And then donut wise is going to be the twist and the long john, our neck and neck. We sell a lot of those.
Cool.
So, and we do our specialties every now and again, and those sell fairly well as well. So.
All right. So can you tell me when and how you and Brandi came to purchase the Daylight Donut? I guess it's a franchise. Is it?
Well, it's not a franchise. It's a license, and
Mm-hmm.
so we buy the flour and things from Daylight Donuts. It's based in Tulsa, but we don't send them any of our revenue. We just buy their flour, their ingredients. They bring it on a truck every 2 weeks, but they don't tell us, hey, you've got to make this or you've got to do this. We buy their ingredients essentially. Right. And so we started, I don't know how long ago it was, years and years ago, as Sunshine Bakery. And originally it was just 2 nights a week. It was desserts and like ice cream. And then that kind of just evolved, and we kind of put a pin in that, and we started doing breakfast a few days a week. And we were doing the coffee and did breakfast, but there was we didn't do donuts at that time. And then when our original Daylight Donuts stopped being in business, we were able to then get a license. So Daylight, you can only have, of course, they're not going to let in a small town more than one Daylight Donuts. Right. So we were able to once that wasn't going anymore, get the license, and it's just grown over time, kind of by accident. We didn't plan for this necessarily, but it's just been kind of organic, and it's been great. We've really been happy with it.
And so when you started with the Sunshine Bakery, was that a location down on Main Street here in Oakley?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not where Daylight Donuts was.
No.
You had a different location.
Different location. If you're familiar with Oakley, it's actually where G&H Computers is.
Oh,
now.
Okay.
It was our first original place.
And then when the Daylight Donuts that was here closed, you started making Daylight Donuts at Sunshine Bakery in that location.
That's
and eventually moved.
That's
to
right. And then we bought the property out on the highway. We did that so that we could have a drive-through, and it's been a good move for us.
Drive-through is pretty busy.
Yeah.
Like
the drive-through is
a big part of your business.
It is. It's a tremendous amount of it. That's exactly right.
Right. And so how do you and Brandi, you said a little bit, it sounds like your night shift, how do the two of you split responsibilities between all of the work commitments?
Right. I do the production side, as far as the making and, that whole side. Now, Brandi knows how to do all that, and she'll come in when we're short-staffed or whatever. But I kind of run the production side of it, and then she'll run the more daytime where customers are actually coming through. Brandi's job is significantly harder than mine. She does all the, the billing and the banking and all those different things. My job is purely production, and then I'll come in the daytime if we need the staff. But that's kind of how we do it. She runs the daytime type of things. I run the nighttime type of things, and it's worked well for us. Worked well for our schedule. We've got little kids, and so she's able to be home at night with them. And yeah, she's awesome at what she does, and I just get to
Right.
make.
So I guess you got to get the kids to school.
No, my mom actually gets the kids to school because I'm sleeping.
Okay.
Because I'm, since I work at night, so I'm sleeping. And so we're blessed to have my mother that lives in town. And so she comes actually and takes the kids to school because Brandy's already
She's at work in the middle of the night. Early.
She's at work early and I'm sleeping. And so my mom actually comes and brings the kids to school.
Team effort.
Well said. That's exactly what it is. It's a team effort.
All right.
So, yeah.
Well, Sunshine Bakery isn't the only thing you do. We're sitting here at the Gateway Fellowship. It's a local church. And so how would you describe Gateway?
Well, it's a local non-denominational church. It's been here for a long time. My dad was the pastor before I was. And we do our best to just to be a welcoming place for people to explore faith or to grow in their faith. And we've been doing it for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, I guess now.
When you're saying you and Brandi?
Brandi and I, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been here. I can't remember what it exactly is, but 8 or 9 years I've been able to be the pastors here. So. And
what are the sort of activities, the schedule you have during the week or on Sundays?
We're pretty specific. We don't do a lot of things during the week. Mm-hmm. Our primary focus is just the weekend gatherings. And so we gather at 10:15 on Sunday mornings. We have our children's environments in the other building. And then we have our adult gatherings here where we're sitting. Mm-hmm. And then we'll gather at different times in the year in small groups to connect and to grow and things. But we don't have a lot of extra activities. We're pretty focused on our weekend gatherings.
Your week sounds pretty full.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so you're a pretty dynamic speaker. You do lead you give the Sunday messages.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about your sort of speaking style and how you developed that. Is that something that came naturally or something that you actively pursued in college or something?
Well, it's both. It came naturally. I have a very casual style. Mm-hmm. I do that on purpose. I try to take, we try to take a lot of the barriers away from people coming to faith or exploring faith. Lots of statistics are showing that more and more young people are moving away from the church and moving away from faith. And so we try to take away a lot of barriers that might stand in the way of people and faith. And so one way we do that, do it in several ways, but one way is a fairly casual environment. And the speaking style, it did come naturally, but also at the same time, work hard on it seeming natural. It's been a lot of work but just try to communicate things in a way that people can relate to and people can grasp and people can say, oh, that matters to me. And I want to come back in next week and hear some more.
Right. Well, I've noticed that when you have a screen that sometimes has some quotes on it or has some key messages. Yeah. And then are you ad-libbing or do you have a dress rehearsal and you've got a script? Just curious about your own personal process.
It's a good question. So I have a TV next to me and it's what a lot of people would have, like a PowerPoint or something like that. It's not special. It just happens to be on a TV next to me, and it'll have our scripture verses and what I would call mile markers. So it kind of helps me to know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And then the in between that is a mixture of ad-libbing and I have some notes on the TV in front of me that I can kind of see. And so it's a mix. So I don't have like a pulpit or a stand with like notes on it necessarily.
But you have things you can reference in front of you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
That's right.
And is that all do you work with anybody or is this all kind of your own, like you type up the sort of flow for each week?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I do that.
Okay. But you have a lot of volunteers. You broadcast online. So tell me about it sounds like people can really get involved here if they want to.
Well, they can, and that's what we want people to do. People getting involved turns that church over there into my church, your church into my church. Mm-hmm. And that's what our goal is for that to become personal to you. And so we have lots of opportunities for people to get involved and to serve and use their talents to help other people. And so, lots of people we say that the church is not built on the gifts and talents of the few, but on the sacrifices of the many. And so week in and week out, we got people making coffee. We've got people running video. We've got people running the computers. We've got people serving in our children's environments. We've got people cleaning. We've got so many things that happen. And, the thing that happens on the stage is just really the culmination of that. We like to say that the sermon starts in the parking lot, that if people come in the doors for the first time and feel out of place or don't feel welcomed or feel like they're kind of ostracized, well, then doesn't really matter what I say, because they've already kind of put a wall up. And so we want people at the front doors welcoming and happy to see them, and people help them to get coffee and get their kids sorted. And so I do the public thing, but it's not the most important thing by a pretty long margin.
Right. And so music, you guys have people, you kind of do your own music. You've got some vocalists and some musicians that participate each week.
Some talented musicians. Depends on the week how many people are here, but we've got people on drums and guitars and keyboards and singing, and it's a great time.
And are you finding that you're able to connect with younger people, and how is that going, and how do you feel like the sentiment is, and the youth in high school or young adults around here?
Sure. I feel, there's a lot of more work to do. We don't have it perfect by any stretch, but I think that in a sense we are connecting with people, and people are hopefully growing, and that's, our goal. We see new people come, and not everybody stays, but new people come, and it's a real joy. We really enjoy our ministry, I guess, if the word you would say that way.
Yeah. And you're online. Do you find that you're getting engagement on your sort of the stuff that you share? I guess you're on Facebook. You're on, I don't know if you're on other platforms.
Yeah, we're on
TikTok.
We're just getting on TikTok, actually. Yeah. So we just recognize that it's difficult to fight against, people have a phone in their pocket or in their hand all the time. And it used to be that in order to connect with people, they needed to come to a place. And I'm pro. I want people to come to the place, but the beauty of technology, I think there's some detriments to technology, but one of the beauties of technology is that you can connect to people 24/7.
Right.
Through that phone in their hand, you can put up little 60-second or 90-second little clips, and they might not have been able to make it to church on the weekend and sit through a hour-long service, but you can grab them in that 60 seconds while they're at a stoplight, or between all of their rushing around with kids. And so we try to use technology to our benefit, for sure. I think that there's no other way to do it, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but.
And do you have sort of volunteers helping with that effort too, or are you like producing videos on your own when you're not at the Sunshine Bakery?
No, I produce videos. I used to, in a former life, I used to be a creative director, and I had a video production company. And so I know how to do those things. And I enjoy those things. It's not because other people can't. I enjoy it. And so today I'll shoot a bunch of clips, and it's not always live, necessarily. Sometimes I'll batch it and do several in one hit, and then send them out throughout. And so that's kind of how that works.
Yeah. Well, so before we had the internet, before it even existed, I know your father and your grandfather have been involved in this organization, and I wonder if you could tell me about your understanding of the history of, I believe it was the community church.
Sure.
And then it became Gateway.
Yeah.
So do you know how it all started and how your family got to be so deeply involved in this ministry?
Right. Well, it's a good question. So there's other people that could tell you the history better than me. But when my grandfather was a young man, as I understand it, a traveling speaker or preacher or whatever came through, and through a series of different events, they started a church. Not my grandfather, but
a group of people.
A group of people or a person. And as I understand it, and I might be totally mistaken, there might be somebody that's watching this that says, actually, it happened this way.
Well, if you're watching this and you've got comments,
and you're probably right.
we're interested to hear the story.
Yeah. But anyway, a gathering started, and my grandfather was involved. He wasn't the pastor.
Right. And this is Jimmy.
This is Jimmy.
Mhm.
Jimmy, yeah. And he was involved, not the pastor or anything. And then my dad, they had different pastors through the years. And then my dad, he at some point came back, and when at that time it was Reverend Omberg was the pastor. When he retired, my father became the pastor. He grew up in the church.
Mhm.
Like you said, it was community church. So my father grew up in the church. The pastor retired. My dad became the pastor. And so this is the church that I've known. This is the church that I grew up in. And years go by, and my father was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease.
Mhm.
And there came a point where he wasn't able to do ministry anymore. And so he retired, and they asked, I was working at a church in Kansas City at the time as the creative director. And they asked, or I said, hey, I'd be willing to do that if you would have me. And they said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And at that point, they had changed the name at some point during my dad's tenure from Community Church to Gateway Fellowship.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I came with Brandi and at that point, our 2 kids. And that was 8-9 years ago,
Mhm.
something like that. And we've been the pastors since then.
Right. And so at some point, because there was another church, there was another building in town
Right.
that they,
Right.
and that would have been the church you grew up in?
No,
Or
no,
by
that
the-
was
But this was, you were out here by the time
this
you were
was
a young.
the brick building.
Okay.
Yeah. I was never a part, and I don't know when the brick building here got built,
Mhm.
but that's the only one that I knew of. This is the only location.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, and so then tell me about, so your path to ministry. Sounds like you were involved in Kansas City. What
Yeah.
before that, and sort of how'd you get, decide that this was a calling for you?
Yeah. So when I was a senior in high school, decided that I think I want to pursue a life of ministry, and what might that look like. And so my path was like many paths of pastors. I started as a youth pastor in Iowa, and it was my uncle's church, and he needed a youth pastor, and I didn't know anything. And so he said, hey, do you want this? And I said, sure.
So would your uncle be Jamie's brother?
It would be Jamie's sister's husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of ministry in your
A
family.
lot of ministry in the family.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was a youth pastor in Iowa for 4.5 years. And then Brandi and I got engaged and married. We grew up in high school together, and we reconnected later in life, and we got engaged and married, and there's a whole thing. And so then we moved to Oklahoma, and she worked there, and I worked at another church in Oklahoma. And then from there, again, as a youth minister. And then from there, we moved to Kansas City to help start a church. There was another couple. We weren't the ones that were in charge, but another couple were starting a church in Kansas City. And so we moved to Kansas City to help that and working for them. And then a few years after that is when we came back to Oakley.
Yeah. Well, so tell me, so you kind of planted a new church. How did that go? Was it like with no people, or
Yeah, no people.
And how are they doing now?
It's really
what's the
it's
story?
really going well.
Yeah. Is it a similar non-denominational?
It's a non-denominational. It's at the time that I was part of it, it was called the Cause KC, the church there. They've since long after I had left, they're now Hillsong, Kansas City. So
Okay.
Hillsong is a fairly large church.
Right.
In Australia and different places, and they
wow.
kind of got connected to them, and so they're Hillsong Kansas City now. But when I started with them, it was called the Cause KC, and yeah, it was quite an adventure. Starting from 4 people in a room,
Right.
and then they've done really well. And I have nothing. I have no credit to me with that. That was all them. They did a phenomenal job.
Right. But I'm sure that things you learned there and things you learned in the other places that
Sure.
you've been part of ministry have
Absolutely.
influenced your approach here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No
Yeah.
question. No question.
And so I guess, so did you come back then? You came back for the purpose of leading this
That's right.
church, and
Yeah.
then the Sunshine Bakery was something that you started
On
as a side
on
project.
accident.
Okay.
It was really an accident. We didn't plan for it. So I was a pastor here, and Brandi was working at the service center, just as, one of their staff there.
Mhm.
And I needed something because I was just working with my mind all day, and I needed something with my hands. I just needed some kind of outlet. And so I took up, for the sake of a hobby, to do something, I took up some baking, and I enjoyed it. But it was clearly too much for Brandi and I to eat, just baking stuff. And so she started to take it to the service center, just in the break room, and she just put it out. And then people would say, hey, could I buy X, Y, and Z for I've got, this thing this weekend? Could I get some X, Y, and Z? And so that was kind of the beginning. We didn't plan on it. It really just started as I need something physical to do, because I'm sitting and just working with my brain. I need something physical. And one thing led to another, and it's grown to what it is today. So
Right.
That's how it's
So
really
sort of
really an accident.
Yeah, like an ad hoc catering business.
That's right.
And then you needed a place.
And
then you decided to open for retail.
And I just can't help myself. Like I enjoy starting things.
Mhm.
It's a real pleasure. I don't enjoy finishing things. I leave that to Brandi. And I love a start. I love the adventure. And this has just been one of those things that the community's been real supportive of, and keeps coming. And so we keep making stuff.
Yeah, cool. Well, and so for are you starting anything new? Is there any secrets we're going to reveal in this interview?
Well, there are some things that we've got in the works, but
not disclosing today.
There's no.
All right, it's a teaser for the next interview 4 or 5 years from now.
We are always thinking about things, So maybe on your next podcast.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right. I'll know that the idea was there.
The idea was there. That's right.
All right. Even if you don't know it yet.
That's right. I might be thinking of something. I might think of something tomorrow. Well, who knows?
Right.
No, we've got a few things that are kind of in the thought process, and thinking about some ideas both for the bakery and the church. And for us, Justin, our main goal, both with the bakery and the church, is to connect with people. The reason that we wanted to start the bakery is not to make money, but we love people, and we want to connect with people, and we want to help people. And obviously, because we're people of faith, we want to point people in that direction. And so for us, the bakery is just an extension of that. I'm happy to give people coffee and donuts. I love a carb as much as anyone, but for us, it's a deeper, and not everybody will connect with that. But for us, it's the beauty of, selling you a twist is great. That's fine. But the connection that we can have, whether it's through the drive-through or whether it's across the counter, so many stories of especially Brandi, because she has such a heart and such a connection with people, sitting down with people, and we've gotten to know them over the years, and hearing their stories and walking with them through loss and through struggle, not in the church context, but really in the bakery context. And that was our main goal. When this became a thing, it's made money. So obviously it has to sustain itself. But the primary objective is to connect with people. And so that's our kind of our always goal. If we're going to do something, let's not do something just to make a few extra dollars. Let's do something to connect with people and to help people and to encourage people. And so that's kind of our MO.
Well, on the loss side of it, you suffered a pretty big loss with your father and grandfather about 5 years ago, 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
Both of them, certainly Jimmy, I remember him when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Very pillar of this community.
Oh, wonderful man.
I'm curious if you can talk about their influence on your values, and maybe other people that have influenced your approach to, being an entrepreneur and being a person that tries to lead people to faith.
Yeah. Well, I am blessed in the fact that I grew up with wonderful men in my life, wonderful men that can encourage you when you need encouraged, and slap you on the side of the head when you need slapped on the side of the head. And not everybody has that. Mm-hmm. And I grew up with such a wonderful and healthy environment of being able to see how men are supposed to be men. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather and my father were just wonderful, wonderful men. And they just kind of showed me the path. And again, the beauty of them is that they were what I needed them to be. When I needed someone to give me a helping hand, that's where they were. When I needed, even if I didn't realize it at the time, when I needed somebody to hey, you need to get your head straight.
Right.
That's where they were. And so, yeah, I just been so fortunate. Not everybody has that. And just so fortunate to have those men in my life. And everybody knows, if you grew up here, like you say, you knew my grandfather.
Yeah. I mean, just amazing guy.
Wonderful guy. Loved by, I'm sure not loved by everyone, but loved by most, certainly. And my dad just followed in his footsteps. And my dad was a wonderful, wonderful man. And yeah, we lost them both just within a few months of each other. So, yeah.
And I guess, did any thoughts on like how you got through that?
Well, loss is a process, and people process loss differently. I'm not known as an emotional person. I'm pretty straight-laced, but this isn't a surprise to anyone. I lean on faith, as a person of faith. Faith becomes real when life becomes real. When life is just great and life is just no problems, then you don't need faith that much, because I'm just leaning on myself. I've got money in the bank, everything's great. But when kind of the bottom falls out, then your faith really becomes real, and it grounds you, and it lets you know, do I really have faith, or am I just trusting in myself? And, so it was an opportunity to lean on that, because I've lived a fairly charmed life. Things have gone well. But in those seasons when it hasn't gone well, I learned for myself, is my faith grounded in something bigger than me? And so grateful that it was.
Yeah. I'm curious, just because of some personal conversations I've had recently, some friends that said they lost their faith, and when the bottom fell out, they didn't find their way back.
Sure.
And when you see people in your community, do you have words for them on how you can kind of, you become homeless, something really bad happens to you, and you feel like nobody is looking out for me.
Right.
How do you kind of approach those situations with people's feelings?
Well, I mean, those are real things. And, it's easy to minimize that, and to, the famous preacher words or faith words. Well, we'll be praying for you, and, thoughts and prayers and those type of things. But sometimes people don't need thoughts and prayers. Sometimes people need like a hand, and sometimes people need like an arm on their shoulder. And we can oftentimes pray for somebody to go do that for somebody. But oftentimes we are the answer to those prayers. And so, when people lose faith, it can be for a variety of things. And I haven't talked to everybody, clearly, but oftentimes when people lose faith, what we discover is that the faith that they lost wasn't the faith that Jesus presented originally. Like they lost something that is not something to ground it on anyway. And so when we ground our faith on who Jesus really is and the message that Jesus really presented, it does sustain you. And Jesus promised that, well, in this world, you're going to have problems. I mean, that's a promise. In this world, you have problems, but you can be of good cheer, not because everything's great, but because in the end, that he's overcome the world, that he's in the end going to win. And so having that as my anchor, knowing that I don't have to be afraid even when there's things to be afraid of, that I can anchor myself in who Jesus is and what he's done in my life, that I have the struggles and I have the problems, but it doesn't have to overwhelm me. And so I just try to encourage people in that way. But life is real, and life has ups and downs, as we all know.
Yeah. Well, for you and Brandi, I'm curious, navigating the ups and downs and a family. You talked about the schedule, but how do you kind of balance? You running a church, you got 3 kids, you're running a bakery. Seems like you're coming and going at all hours.
Sure.
How do you find the right balance when you're at this stage of life?
Well, I don't know that we do. I don't think that we're certainly not the picture of balance. We have a lot on our plate. But one thing that we try to do, and we don't always do it well, is that when we know why we're doing things, it helps us to say yes to some things and it helps us to say no to some things. So because I know that we want to invest in people, then when opportunities come, well, does it help me to invest in people? Yes, it does. Okay, we can say yes to that. Opportunities come. Is it going to help me invest in people? No, it's not really. I can say no to that a little bit easier. So when you have your value system and when you have the reason you're doing things as front and center, then it becomes easier to say yes to things. So for me, it's important for me when my kids are older and when they have families of their own, it's important for me they want to come back home and they want to be engaged with me as their own adults. And so because I want that in the future, it impacts how do I parent them today. And when Brandi and I are empty nesters, when all the kids are gone, I still want to have a dynamic relationship with my wife. And so because I want that in the future, it impacts the way that I am a husband today. And so just having an eye on what do I actually want in the future, it brings pretty extraordinary clarity to my today.
Right.
So that kind of, and again, we're not perfect at it by any stretch. We struggle with it like anyone. It's a busy life, but having an eye to the future helps clarify today.
Right. Well, having founded a church, helped grow a church that your family was involved in, starting a new business, do you have any thoughts for people that might want to take similarly, like you like starting things?
Yeah.
For people that like think they might have that spirit, what thoughts do you have for them on like making when the right time or how
absolutely.
they should approach it?
Well, I think you should just do it. I think,
just jump off the cliff.
Well, in a sense, I mean, you should think through it and talk to people, but at some point dreams have to become action. Like what a shame to get to the end of your life and say, well, I wish I would have given that a shot. And doesn't mean that you throw away your whole life savings. When Brandi and I started the bakery, we were 2 nights a week. It was just little. It wasn't going to be something that ruined us financially, but we just kind of went for it. And we didn't have to go all the way. We just tried it a little bit and it's grown. And I think, especially I tell young people all the time, especially in these small towns like this, I want as many young people to move back as possible and start a business, because I would have never started Sunshine Bakery in Kansas City, because there's another one just like it right down the block. But
Right.
You come back to these small towns and you start something, and it's wonderful. I mean, people will give you a shot. People will
Right.
try it. People will go to your restaurant. People will try your repair shop. People will call you to repair their air conditioner or whatever it is. I think there's so much opportunity in small towns, and not just Oakley, but in all the small towns. Again, in Kansas City, well, I would not be doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Because somebody else has already got it and they've got that market cornered. And if you're lucky, you might give it, you might succeed. But I just think your chances of success in small towns are so much greater. So,
All right. Well, just get out there and do it, everybody.
yeah, just give it a shot and move to Oakley and
do it here.
and
We
try
need
it.
more stuff.
We need businesses, and we need young people to come and buy a house or build a house, and you'll be in great shape, and our town will be better off for it. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, and if they come back and
Yeah.
they want to visit the Gateway, you're here on Sunday mornings. What's their schedule normally?
Yeah, so we have our weekend services Sunday mornings at 10:15.
Okay.
They last for an hour.
And if we need some daylight donuts,
Yeah.
you're not open on Sundays and not Mondays, right?
Yeah,
The rest of the week.
Tuesday through Saturday, 5 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m. on Saturday, and you can come get caffeinated and get some carbs in your life, and
Cool.
you'll enjoy it.
And you can find, if you got a website, and they can find you on Facebook, and if
That's right.
soon TikTok, we can
Yeah.
get some clips and find out what's going on.
Yeah, Instagram, all the platforms. We try to engage where people
Cool.
are.
And they just search for Gateway Fellowship, right?
It depends on the platform. It's either Gateway Fellowship or Gateway Oakley.
Okay.
Just because there's some other Gateway Fellowships,
Okay.
evidently.
Cool.
So, or Sunshine Bakery Oakley.
Right on.
They can search for us, and hopefully we can connect with you.
All right. Well, thanks for all you do for Oakley.
well,
To you and Brandi.
it's my pleasure.
And thanks for talking with me this morning, and hope spread the word on all the good things you're
Yeah.
doing and how people can get involved.
Well,
So,
I enjoyed
Yeah.
being here. Thanks so much for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. See you, everybody. Till next time. This is Justin at Seeking Context.
All right. Caden, have you been to the Sunshine Bakery?
Well, I can't say I actually. Well, I think I've gotten donuts delivered from the Sunshine Bakery. Probably Brian Runnels has went and got a few dozen. Uh,
Yeah.
but
I have
Kyle
a
is.
location near your house.
Yeah, I'll have to make that trip. They seem to be a pretty large exporter, so who
Yeah. And what do
knows?
you think? You going to open a small business in Oakley? That was some pretty inspiring words there.
They
Theo.
were. I didn't. I don't know. I think my dreams of becoming a donut shop owner. I think the market is saturated in Oakley.
There's
So
going to be something else.
yeah.
You're
So
you're a
I'll think on it.
podcasting producer, so
Exactly.
you play it
So
pretty cool. Hey, I wanted to ask you. Last week you interviewed Bob Peterson, and is the play that you were discussing, is that being performed this weekend and next weekend?
yesterday, well, not next weekend. We had one open performance, and that was yesterday, and it went really, really well. And then we have 3 more schools coming in, elementary schoolers this week, and then we tear down the set Thursday. So
Okay,
it's
and that's at Butler Community
that's
College in El Dorado, right?
that's right. That's right.
All right. So
We had some people from Oakley drive all the way down and watch the show yesterday. It was pretty amazing. So
did you orchestrate that, or like people just
well,
heard about it?
Sally Runnels orchestrated that. So
Okay, you do
but
have connections.
I do everywhere. So it was pretty amazing. I'm glad they were able to see it.
Cool.
But that interview was fantastic. I really enjoyed it because it was so quick and concise. It was just like 35 minutes of just information. There was no downtime. It was perfect.
Well, and it is impressive. I mean, Cal and Brandi, they got 3 kids. They're running a full-time business, and then on the weekends they pastor this church. I mean, that's a pretty full plate for anybody anywhere. So
Oh
it
yeah.
does show, I think, that like there's a lot going on in small town places if you make it happen for yourself.
hmm
Right?
I agree. It's when he talked about it at the end, he always tells people to come back into small towns. It made me think about the small town I'm from in Conway Springs, where you don't see people come back, and you want people to come back and start new businesses. So that's something I think more people should think about.
Yeah, it's encouraging. So, okay, well, we'll sign off here, but I wanted to show, let's see. Oh, here's our thing. So if you want to support the show, we're out there. We're on Buy Me a Coffee with Seeking Context. And so that's an opportunity to support the show. And if you got other small businesses or entrepreneurs here in the Midwest that you think would be a good story for us to do a Seeking Context interview, then just reach out to us. My email is justin@seekingcontext.com, or you can talk to Caden. Caden at seekingcontext.com. And we sort of want to just tell good stories about people doing great things out here in the Midwest.
That's right. Ditto.
All right. Well, Caden, have a good week. Good luck with the rest of the production out there in El Dorado. And we'll see everybody maybe next weekend. We've got a good show in the mix. I'm just not sure if it'll be produced by next Sunday. So, anyway, we'll see you when we're able to get back on the air. And we're kind of planning on doing this, making a standard time on the weekends. Our attempt at a Saturday show was tripped up by technical difficulties. So maybe Sunday's the day that we're going to have a regular live Seeking Context episode.
It could be. Who knows? We'll have to actually get it planned out. But
All right.
yes. All right.
All right. Thanks, Caden. See
Of
everybody
course,
next
you too.
time.
Bye.